Hi, Alan Stratton from woodturning. I mostly use a full-size lathe, a Powermatic 3520A. It is a good lathe with capacity for both spindle work, hollow forms, and bowl work. One problem is the weight of the tailstock. It's about 50 pounds or over 20 kilos for you metric folks. When I do spindle work, the weight is not a problem since I want the tailstock in place all the time. But when I turn a bowl or a hollow form, I want the tailstock in place when I rough the work, then I need it out of the way when I'm hollowing. And then I may want it back in place when I'm finishing the bottom. The tailstock is removable, but it's a backbreaker or a hernia generator, unless I'm really careful. Dropping it on my toes would also really spoil my day. When replacing it, I not only have to lift it, but I have to juggle the alignment so that I can slide it onto the bed. So often, I just slide it as far out of the way as I can, but then I tend to hit it with my elbow. That's also painful. So the bottom line is that this has become a health and safety issue, and I need to resolve it. I've done some research and found a couple of commercial solutions. They're nice, but they're also expensive, more than some lathes. I'd rather use the money for a new tool. A fellow member of our Cascade Woodturners Association mounted an electric hoist over the lathe to lift the tailstock. His does double duty to lift very heavy bowls, blanks also. Nice, but not portable.
Here's one from Pablo Gazmuri that swings the tailstock around to the side a little bit.
In the February 2012 issue of American Woodturner, there was a tip from Ken Haynes that I liked. He used a 3-drawer cart. So I started looking for a cart. But I couldn't find one that didn't cost me an arm or leg. After all, that was what I was trying to preserve. I could not find a cart, so I figured I'll make one. I can do that. However, the wheels alone are expensive and are really budget busters. And then I'd have to add in the cost of the wood, and I would make it sturdy. I was stymied. Then my wife, in her regular review of shopping ads, spotted one from Costco online. An Alara 3-tier rolling cart for about $52 with coupons. This was less than the cost of the wheels in my other design. But then I had to design my version. I drew up the possibilities in SketchUp. I imagined all sorts of fancy schemes to match the bedways and to align the cart to the lathe. Finally, after reviewing my design with my wife, we simplified the design. First, I would put a piece of plywood inside the entire top shelf. Nothing special here. Making the plywood fit just inside the shelf would eliminate the need for fasteners other than gravity. And the shelf is low enough to clear the slot in the bottom of the lathe. I considered several alternatives for the surface of my extension bedways. I could use high-density polyethylene from my local plastic supplier. This is slick, easily worked, not that expensive, but difficult to glue. It's better to screw it down rather than gluing it down. Countertop laminate was also a possibility. I even have some good scraps lying around in the shop, but it has to be glued and trimmed. Ultimately, I decided that Baltic birch plywood would probably be sufficient. It's dense, it's firm, it's stable. It's not as slick, but I can finish and wax it as necessary. Next, I glued up a long piece of Baltic birch plywood onto some MDF. The profile matched one side of the lathe bed. Once dry, I trimmed it, cut it in half, and mounted it to another piece of plywood. I could have added some more plywood to elevate it to match the top of my extension to the lathe bed if it were needed. Mine matches. Initially, I imagined some means of clamping the cart to the lathe, and I did not want the cart to move as I shoved the tailstock over onto it. At the same time, my first thought was to align the extension to the long axis of the cart. However, I realized that the better alignment was to probably use the short axis of the cart and to always manipulate the tailstock from the side of the cart opposite the lathe. This was perfect. While moving the tailstock, I could hold the cart in place with my body, and using the short width of the cart would reduce the amount I had to lean over the cart, and after all, I wanted to preserve my back. This eliminated the need to clamp the cart to the lathe, and it also centered the heavy tailstock more on the cart. At the same time, I decided to simplify how I would align the extension to the lathe bed. Initially, I had envisioned an elaborate mechanism under the shelf. Then I thought to add just simple ears to the end of my extension. Finally, I settled on this short piece of plywood. It slides into the bottom of the slot of the bedways. With a little relief on the bottom, it matches the height and width and the horizontal dimensions into the bedways. I doubt that I'll need a more complex alignment later. Now, I almost forgot the slot down the middle because there's a nut on the bottom of the tailstock that had to clear. So here we are, all screwed together and fastened in place. So push the cart up to the lathe. I made this block to make sure it's aligned. Hold it with my hip. Then pull the tailstock off, lock it down so it won't move while you're away. Then move the cart away, do my work with the lathe. When I need it again, pull it back. Now the weight of the tailstock with this wire shelf has weighed it down a little bit. It's a little bit lower. But with the taper on the bottom of the alignment, just take it, shove it in place with my hip, unlock the tailstock and push the lathe back on, lock it down. We're ready to turn again with the tailstock in place. No backstrain, no mashed toes, no banged up elbow, and no mashed fingers. The cost, about $52 and a little bit of wood. Much less than any commercial solution that I saw. Plus I now have portable storage. So what can I use it for? Maybe it's a good place for all those hand clamps that I have laying around. So have fun, be safe. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And we'll see you again with the next video.